All right, we're here with Alex Lathery of Blue Collar Builds, a branding, web design, and system automation service for home service businesses. Really excited to have you on, Alex. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Brian. I'm excited to finally get on here and chat. I know we've connected once before, but you're doing some cool stuff with these type of business owners, and it fits right in with what I do, basically. So,
Great. Awesome, man. Yeah. And on that note, would love to share a little bit or learn a little bit more about what you do. So, can you share a bit more on your background and what the business is that you run?
yeah. So basically, in a nutshell, what we do, we being me and my dad works full time with me, is we design and build websites for home service businesses. That is kind of the primary group of people that we work with. We do that in Webflow. If you guys have any kind of familiarity with like WordPress versus Webflow versus all these platforms, we build them in Webflow. And the focus of what we do is really on that kind of branding phase. So if you're starting a brand new company, if you're going through a rebrand, anything like that, we do a lot of logo work and then transitioning that also into the website side. So building a website from the ground up. I've done some migrations of websites over from like WordPress to Webflow. If people need something that is brand new, need something that has a little bit more in kind of the way of conversions on it, for ad landing pages, for SEO, for anything kind of in that realm. And that's really what the focus has been. So I've been doing that for a little over 2 years now, and have not shifted from that main focus of home service businesses and really nailing the website and the brand that you go and kind of launch with and carry forward.
Understood. So what's the main service that people you hire you for? They come to you and have them you would build a website for them. Is that right?
Yeah, so it kind of depends exactly on where they're at. But if they're kind of, let's say they are starting a new business or acquiring an old business, it's usually starting from scratch. A lot of the guys that have been kind of buying businesses, like they are buying the ones that are more pen and paper. And if they even have a website that they bought with the company, it's usually really old and they want to get rid of that thing as soon as possible. So that's kind of like client number one is they really are starting from scratch. They need a logo, they need colors to work with, they need like what font should they use, and then they need a website. And I work with a ton of people kind of in that scenario. Also work with a lot of more established companies that are like, for example, have a WordPress website and they want to move off to something that has a little bit more capability on the design side, want something that's a little bit more unique to showcase. So I do a lot of work with those guys as well, and that's usually more optimizing and kind of building out other additional pages or like ad landing pages and trying to improve the conversion rates on what they've already got versus something, starting from scratch brand new. So that kind of breaks out into those two main kind of categories of people.
Okay, so sometimes folks are coming to you and saying, "Hey, I want to start this business. I need a website." And then other times someone may have purchased an existing business that has a landing page and they say, "Hey, Alex, we need help getting this to be a world-class website."
Yep. And I tend to say like I'm trying to build the best websites in boring businesses. And a lot of the people that come to me come with that in mind of like, we want something that is not just like another template. I don't want to look like every plumbing company that's out there. I want something that's unique. I want something that is like tech forward and kind of modern oriented. And so that's really where I feel like I've kind of tried to carve out a niche is people that have that aspiration for their brand and their website and building that in while keeping some of the traditional focuses. Like people always obviously want to have their website SEO optimized or be able to do SEO on things. They want to have ad landing pages so they can optimize their pay per click campaigns. Like keeping a lot of what honestly is very tangible for them from a benefit standpoint and being able to package that in a way that helps really kind of bring in the modern sense of it and help with conversions from that perspective. So that's kind of what people and what I try to kind of do with these projects is really go in that direction. And that involves obviously how it looks, how it's designed. That usually also involves like what kind of software should you use? Are you going to use a CRM? Are you going to use like a pop-up campaign with, emails that go off the back end. Like talking about that stuff with clients is a lot of what I like to dive in to make sure that, it's going to look good from a website perspective, but you need to have some of these bells and whistles to really automate things and to make sure that people that come to your website, you really maximize what they are doing on your website. You're collecting emails, you're collecting names, phone numbers, and you have systems that dial into your sales process or your greater funnel to get those people kind of dialed in and make sure that you're reaching out to those people that have gone to your website.
Right. Yeah. So when people come to you and let's say someone bought a plumbing or HVAC business and there is some existing website, what are the
Yeah.
1 to 3 things you see most commonly on existing websites that are just really not good and need fixing immediately?
So, depending on how old the website is and depending on who did it or basically where they went to get that done, if they really like cheaped out and just paid somebody maybe $100 or a couple $100 on Fiverr, in that scenario, I find a lot of bugs, glitches, just mistakes on the website. Like this link doesn't work, this link doesn't work, this link doesn't work, broken pages, missing pages. That is what I'll find a ton of times. And usually in those scenarios, the business owner either acquired this business or just has zero like web desire or technical kind of ability with that. And they don't have a relationship with the previous web developer, or it's not a great relationship. And so usually they're kind of coming out of a place of frustration of like, half my website doesn't work and I need to get that fixed. And that's obviously one that is super urgent to get those fixed because some of those missing pages are helping to, one, it's a bad experience for like people that visit the site. Like the page is just not there if they're trying to go for it. Two, bad for SEO. And then three, it's just how do you even get that fixed is kind of the problem that they're having on their side. So that's one thing that I see a lot from like a visual and like a layout perspective. The biggest thing that I see on most of those websites is they have like zero structure for how to direct people's eyes on the website. And there's no end goal in mind with that. You land on their website and their homepage doesn't have like a single focal point and it's not directing you towards anything. It maybe says like we are so and so plumbing company and we were established in 1995 and we've been doing this for 25 years and there's no buttons that you can click to get an estimate or click to call them. There's no like there's maybe an image somewhere on that part of the screen, but it's really not tied to where the text is. And when you think about how to design a website that's good in any kind of vertical, any industry, you want to have it so that someone lands on that page, they instantly go to the most kind of eye-catching thing, and that's what you want to hook them with. And that message then leads down into the second message. And then all of those lead the eyes right into your main call to action buttons. And that's like a very simple formula to follow. And almost none of the older kind of SMB type of websites follow that. That's point number two. The last one that I would say is that it's kind of just a compilation of bad design choices, images that are really blurry or that are like very obviously stock. Clearly not this person's actual company or like them actually doing a service. It's really cheesy stock photos, bad color combinations, like colors behind text so that the text is not even readable, colors that are just like really, really eye jarring that maybe distract from like the call button, which is really where you want to stand out. Those are generally like the three categories of things that I see on like the older websites that you don't see on most new, modern, well-designed, well-built websites.
Got it. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. And so you mentioned the call to action and kind of driving the person on the web page to a specific call to action. Have you seen one specific call to action be more productive than others for these companies? Whether it's call the business now, get a quote, email us directly. What's the best practice there?
Yeah, so I think it depends a lot on who you're targeting. And I think that it also depends a lot on your actual sales process, right? So there's really no like best or wrong answer depending on what type of business you're running and depending on who you're trying to target with it. So, for example, if you are like a plumbing business or a locksmith, people that have plumbing issues or like are locked out of their car, like that's a pretty urgent service. Towing is another one that fits in with that. Those people do not, under any circumstances, want to submit a contact form, wait, 24 to 48 hours to get someone to hear back from and to get a quote, and then maybe to get someone out there to help them. Like, they need help now. And if you owned a towing website and all you had on it was reach out and get a quote, you're going to get zero customers. They're going to be calling the next guy. And so if you are in an industry that's very phone driven, you really want to make sure that you're highlighting that phone call and really only highlighting the phone call. You can have a contact page and have a form for someone to reach out if they want to know just a couple of basic details about the business, but almost all of your leads you're going to want to drive via a phone call. And so in that case, you got to use your phone number pin. But there's other industries, for example, and it also really depends on how you want to build the business. Like a lot of the cleaning business owners that I kind of have talked to, they either do this kind of on the side, they have another business, they have maybe a high paying job, but they want this to be a more automated business. And those guys are kind of on the mind of like, I really don't want a super manual sales process. I want them to be able to book online, and we want to kind of advertise ourselves as that, transparent pricing, online booking. And when you're in that kind of direction, I really encourage people to lean heavily into that, like book online. The rule that I follow and that I kind of encourage most clients to follow is the button should be very, very descriptive of what they're going to get after they click that. So if they are going to a book online page, it should say book online. If they're going to a quote page where you're not going to give them a price and an option to actually book, you should say get a quote, because setting the expectation for the visitor is very important for the conversions of it, and just leading them step by step of this is kind of what you should expect next is always going to be good from that aspect. The only kind of other comment that I also will give people is like, if you think about like how much of a commitment is required for someone to go from that step to the next step, you can also change the wording. So there are people that, run like an online actual direct booking and you get a price right there. But I will have kind of encouraged them to just, hey, get a quote, because they do get a quote. They get the price for what the service is going to be. But if you're kind of looking at get a quote versus book online, get a quote is a lot smaller of a commitment in your mind. You're like, okay, I'm just going to kind of get the quote. I'm just going to see the price. And then I can go to that next step after that, versus book online. Somebody might see that and be like, well, I'm not really ready to book yet. I think I'm still kind of looking at some options. And so you can really play with your wording to influence people in that way. And those are generally kind of the paths that I'll look at. So you'll either have that phone driven business and you really want to go the phone side, or you'll have the online booking / quote business. And you can have a choice on how you want to word that, depending on, if you want it to be very, very automated, a little bit more manual, and also what you want to communicate to that visitor.
Yeah, got it. I think that's a good insight there you mentioned, which is like have the call to action be tied to and correlated to the timeliness of your business. So if you're a locksmith, if you're doing towing, and you have a service that is time is a huge factor compared to, you could get your house cleaned today or tomorrow or the day after. It's usually not that urgent. Have the call to action be correlated to that. I think that makes a lot of sense. You also said something about not having stock footage on the website. And can you talk more about content on a landing page, and do people need super HD drone videos? Does an iPhone picture suffice? How would you guide people? How do you talk to your clients about the visual content on their landing page?
Yep. So there's really two kind of types of clients that come in that direction. There's like client A that has nothing. They have no pictures. They just bought this business. They just started this business. They have nothing. And in that case, you can make do with stock photos. Like, it is doable. And if you have a good eye for what you're looking for, because typically when I say find a good designer, you can work really well with stock photos, and it's about selecting the right ones so that nobody will know that they're stock photos. I mean, the only people that probably would is like another web designer, because they've seen those photos like all over Unsplash or, Pexels or any of these other kind of free stock sites. That's kind of like customer number one. Customer number two, they usually do have some stuff. They have some pictures of their whole crew. They have pictures of their work vans. They have pictures of like work that they've done, if it's a more visual field like home remodeling. Always encourage people to use their own photos. It's way more authentic. People can tell usually that that's their own photos. Sometimes even like there's a balance that you want to strike between like the professionalism of it. If something is super staged, it's going to look like a stock photo. If something is super low quality, it's blurry, it looks like it was taken on a flip phone, that's going to do absolutely nothing for you in terms of like converting people and showcasing the kind of quality of your brand or service. There's this middle ground where you really can go and hire somebody, a professional photographer, somebody that's really going to do some good photo work. And I do encourage that, if it's kind of in your budget, and if you want to just do one pass at it, to use that material on your website, on your social medias, on flyers, anything. You do it once and you have a lot of material to now work with. The other way that you can do it is, honestly, yes, your phone cameras are so good now. I've had clients that just pull out their iPhone, take a picture of their work thing. You would never know that it was taken on an iPhone. I mean, the quality is super good, and I think people overthink it a little bit. Sometimes it takes a little bit of knowledge of like, how do you take a good photo, the lighting and some of the settings, but iPhone works better than 80% of the stuff that you'll find out there. And I always encourage you, again, to use photos that are actually of your company, your crew, and your work versus stock photos. So if you can, I would recommend to go that route.
Yeah, that makes sense. And on the topic of content, how would you talk to a client, or how do you go about incorporating social proof, testimonials, reviews, certifications into a landing page for a home service business?
Yeah, so I am kind of in the mind of like, you really can't have too much social proof. Obviously, there's a limit on some of that, but the more that you have that is legitimate, the better. If you have 500 reviews, like, you should showcase that. Whether you do that in your hero section, which is the top section on your website, trusted by 500 homeowners in the DFW area, like, anything that can come out as eye-catchy to somebody that's jumping on the website, that shows that you're not just a brand new company out there, that you have worked with other people, that other people have trusted you with their money, and you have delivered a good service. It's really just about reputation. And almost all business is just about reputation. There's something to be said about the quality of the product or service, but in a lot of these home service industries, it really isn't about like what you're doing. It's about who you as the company are and how well you service those people, right? Because anybody can go and install, for example, like landscape lighting, just to give an example. It's really not that complicated, and you can be the best in the field, but there's probably going to be other people that can do it pretty close to as good. And so really what you're competing on how well you do it. You're competing on the quality of like the actual customer service and the interactions that you have with these people, and you're competing on how easy you make it for that customer. And so when you're really thinking about your reputation, you want to communicate that stuff up front. And so some of the things that I like to do on websites specifically, like on a homepage, is if you just hop onto any website, there should be at least like 1, 2, or 3 pieces of social proof that's right there in that front section or right underneath of it. So what does that generally look like? There's a lot of websites, if you kind of hop onto them, and like I said, you'll have this main heading, and then maybe just right above that main heading, you have like 5 little stars, and it says trusted by over 500 homeowners, right? That's instant. It's usually a different color than the actual like heading and a lot of the other stuff, so it kind of pops out. And it's also playing on some of like those psychological cues of like greens, good. Yellows, we think of 5 stars. A lot of those things just kind of, we don't even think about them. We just instantly perceive it. And it kind of starts to build that picture of trust. And so you'll add stuff like that. A lot of times you'll see them use certain softwares like Nice Job, that are review automation softwares that also come with the little widget that's in the bottom corner of the website. And it'll just say like, Bryan just left us a review. Those things are awesome for communicating some of that social proof. And then I usually like to also have up very close to that top section, if you have any kind of certifications, or if you want to link out to like all of your different review sites so that people can see and kind of have that brand recognition of, oh, trusted on Google, or 5 stars on Google and Facebook and Yelp and Thumbtack and the Better Business Bureau. All of those things just continue to paint this picture of what people are going to perceive about you. And so building in those trust signals. The other one that's maybe not talked about as much is like the ones that you really can't fake, because anybody can put those types of things on their website. And I mean, you could do some due diligence and like check, like, do they actually have these many reviews? A lot of people aren't going to do that. One of the ones that's a lot harder to fake is if you're in a more visual industry. I really like to include like transformations or like befores and afters. So I've worked with a lot of like pressure washing clients, and doing like a before and after slider that shows like the really moldy algae covered sidewalk or roof that they have, and then boom, you've got the transformation. It's a clean roof or fence or what have you. The same with like a home remodeling or landscaping. You can kind of see the befores and afters. House cleaning works really well with that as well. You see like this really cluttered or dirty space, and then you turn it over, you see that brand new transformation. That's another form of social proof that people don't think about a lot, that can be very powerful, because it paints this picture of like this initial state that a customer is going to be at, and then this final state that they want to be at. Because a lot of those service industries, they're either transformational and it's doing something like that, like cleaning or home remodeling or renovations, or it's just based off of like, please fix this thing in my life, for example, plumbing, HVAC. And so if you can paint that transformation for them, it gets them excited. It allows them to kind of put themselves in that position, and it is kind of demonstrating the quality of your work. So that's another form of social proof that I really like to push people to kind of include on their websites.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think before and afters are so powerful. I think it just like burrows deep into the human psychology of like, this is the problem you have, and this is what the solution looks like, and this is how we've done it for many other people, so you can trust that we can do it for you. You mentioned some of those third-party sites, Thumbtack, Yelp,
Yeah.
Google, Google My Business. How important is the landing page in a world where, for example, I as a consumer, I'll hop on Yelp, and if I need a hand car wash, they have a cool feature on Yelp where you can like request a quote from a bunch of businesses in your area. I may never even
Mhm.
go to the website of those businesses. So how do you think about the importance of an owned .com landing page in an era where there are so many third-party booking services that consumers are using?
Yeah. So I would say that it depends a lot on demographics, where people are searching, what industry this is. You might find, for example, in California, that like most people do use Yelp. And so if they're on Yelp, like you really want to have your Yelp portfolio kind of profile optimized.
Right.
But in the same vein, all of those directory sites will link to the website. So I'm going to guess, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'm going to guess that a majority of the traffic and the clicks are directly on Google and are going to a lot of those different like actual company websites. If they're not, the only place that they're going is to these directories. And on these directories, they have a couple of options: call or go to the website. Those are usually it. And depending on if they call you directly from Yelp or Angie's or Thumbtack, that's great. That's good for you. That's why you should have a presence across those platforms. But you're going to have some percentage, and it may be the majority of people that actually go to the website first and then click call or then click get a quote, right? So you want to make sure that you're optimizing for all of those, instead of just saying, I'm only going to be on Yelp and Angie's and Thumbtack. I don't need a website. You're going to lose out on some people that are looking for that. And the way that I kind of illustrate it for people is like, even if you just throw something up that's just a website, you're not going to be like doing any kind of crazy ongoing content plans or anything like that. You just have something simple. It's there. You now have captured all of those people that this would have been a non-negotiable for. And there's no harm in that, right? So getting that and making sure that you kind of fill all of those gaps where you could get leads, you're really casting your net wide, and you're giving yourself the highest opportunity to get those leads, as well as build a diverse kind of platform of where you're getting those leads from, because you can have a really good rankings kind of portfolio on like Yelp and Google Business Profile and Thumbtack, and you're getting a lot of leads from all those. But diversifying out, if anything ever happens to one of those, you're covered on the other platforms.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so let's do a little pulling back here a second to kind of put all this together. Let's say tomorrow I'm starting Bryan's Landscaping Services. I'm here in Santa Monica, California, and I want to help people take care of their lawns through mowing, cleaning the beds, and offering a variety of landscaping and lawn care services. What are like the 3 to 5 key elements you would tell me that I need to have on bryanslawnCare.com to make sure that I'm successful?
So the first thing is to really just have a decent logo. People overcomplicate and undercomplicate the business name and the logo. And I really think that if you just, for example, with the business name, you choose something that communicates what you do and or where you do it, you'll never go wrong. So Bryan's Landscaping or Santa Monica Landscaping, I've seen some that are like Top Choice Landscaping. Like, communicate what you do and or where you do it if you don't have any creative ideas towards like a brand that, for example, I worked with a client, their brand was Sherlock Pet Waste Removal. Very brandable, very unique. You don't have to have that. If you have something that's simple and it communicates what you need, that's kind of step number one. And on the logo side, just get something decent. Don't pay $3 for something on Fiverr that you can go and look up on like a stock photo and it's this like really ugly gradient logo that's been used on like 500 companies. Don't do that. You don't have to spend 3 weeks or a month or 2 months to get this like $10,000, $5,000 full branding scoped package either. Just get something that's decent. And I tend to say then pivot and focus on the stuff that's really going to bring in the revenue at the start. So make sure you have a decent foundation with the name and with the logo and the branding. Um, and then that kind of helps dictate the way that the website's going to go, the way that the website's going to look. And so piece number two, if you're going to do anything, you should at least have just the landing page and you should have a really solid one, right? You don't have to maybe have a 15-page, really complex, crazy built out website, but you better have a really good homepage that looks like it's professional, that communicates what you do and where you do it, and that shows some of that social proof. So if you do anything at all, it should be to show a one-page website that has all of those elements. And now you can go into the next step and you can start to build it out. But I would say that that's kind of the must-have starting point so that somebody can go to your website and that the perception they have of you is what you want it to be. And they can still go to the next step in your sales funnel by going to your contact or quote page, by calling you, by looking at your reviews, and by looking at, for example, like the projects that you've done. So if you've got the branding and the name down, you have the website, at least the core homepage, and then the next step pages like the quote and contact us, you'll be in a pretty good spot. And then really where you go from there is optimization for the long haul. So depending on how you're getting customers and getting leads, if you're doing Google ads, if you're doing Facebook ads, you're probably going to want to develop some pages that are dedicated landing pages for those that are really built for testing, refining, optimizing your conversion rates. And so you can get your ad spend under control and make sure that your margins are good from that perspective. If you decide to go like, I want to rank for, landscaping in Santa Monica, you really want to start going down the SEO side of things, which is building out other pages for your services, for your locations, for, maybe an about us if you have like a rich company history, things like that. But it all really starts with just those core elements of like, get the logo, get the brand dialed in and the business name, get a base design of a website, and make a really good landing page that somebody can go to from any of those directories or from Google search. And if you start with that foundation, you can then start to add the other pieces in. And then I would say that the other final piece that I would say you want to have dialed in from the start, at least a little bit, is you want to be thinking about the software that you're going to put in and on the website. You may not be at the point where you're ready to go with, Jobber, or you're ready to go with House Call Pro or whatever that may be. But you should start thinking and going in that direction, because 6 months, a year go by, 2 years go by, you're going to hit that scale point and you're either going to have to change, and you don't want to change from a really disorganized pen and paper type of system. It's really easy to just start with one of those softwares. They're already out there. They're honestly, most of them are pretty inexpensive, especially when you're on like the starter plans. Learn the system, have it built in from the get-go. So that way that's not one of the bottlenecks and the problems that you face when you're scaling.
Got it. So yeah, I want to dive into two pieces off of that. One is SEO, and then two is like digital tools. So first on the digital tools, okay, so I have my landing page set up. I got my branding. I have some content, maybe a couple testimonials, some pictures from previous jobs. What are those couple digital tools that you think are must-haves for these new businesses?
Like in the software sense?
Yeah, whether it's a job or CRM, marketing
Yeah.
automation, quoting. Yeah, what are the standard tools that most of your clients use?
The most important one that you're going to get is your CRM.
Yep.
That's depending on what CRM you go with. That might be able to do 80% of what you'll ever need it to do. Some of them do email marketing, some of them do invoicing, some of them do scheduling, some of them do route optimization and dispatching, payroll. Like depending on what platform you're in, they can cover a huge range of what you'll need it to do and automation side of things. So start with the CRM, build on from there into other kind of avenues. Like if you want to automate your review process, I recommend a software called Nice Job. There's another one called Review Lead that does pretty well with that. That will help you from automating that process, making sure that you're stacking reviews for not only your website but also for your Google business profile and some of the other directories that also do reviews. That's a very common one that I will tend to recommend. Some of the other softwares that I recommend are, this is a little bit of a hot topic one, is like, does it actually do anything? Does it work? The little messenger chatbot and widgets on the websites. Some people are like, nobody answers mine or nobody reaches out through mine. And I always say to people, I was like, that doesn't mean that nobody ever will. And that doesn't mean that it's not something you want to keep there. That's going to be valuable. Most of the time when people have one and they're saying it doesn't do anything, it's because they have no traffic to their website. This is kind of an expected thing, and it's going to become more of an expected thing if you look at the way that most of like the bigger websites, the tech websites, and the software websites are. They all have that, and I find myself increasingly using that more and more. And I don't think that SMBs are there where it's like 100% adoption, but I feel like the trend is really growing of people are like, this is instant message. Because a lot of people are like, you will do a phone call, but it's becoming more and more, how can I push off the phone call and avoid that? People just don't like to do it like they used to when it was the only option. So messaging, real time, quick, is really the in between solution versus sending a email form submission and you have to wait 2 weeks to get a response back, or wait a week, or wait a couple of days. It just depends on who you're servicing. But having one of those chatbot widgets, I think, is a really good add-on as well. And I know that some even kind of go in towards the direction of like, you can actually have like AI that automates a lot of that. So those are other softwares that I would recommend. And if there's anything else that I would recommend, I would say the website platform itself, if you want to consider that a software, that's also one that you should really consider. Because if you go with a lot of guys, they want to bootstrap it and they want to build on something like Wix, or they want to build on something like GoDaddy's website builder. And that's great for like how easy it is to get something up. But if you ever have aspirations to rank on Google, to add custom functionality, features, or even a more complex design, you hit platform lock with what those platforms can do. And your pool of like talent, if you don't want to do this yourself, is way more reduced on one of those kind of like drag and drop. This is a DIY platform versus some of the other more established. WordPress, obviously the biggest. I use Webflow. So thinking about that from the start can also help you, so that you don't get 6 months in, you hit a wall and you need to go and kind of, you want to scale past that, but you have to go start from scratch again and build on a new platform because the platform itself wasn't sufficient. So the last piece that I would say in terms of software that's good for you to have is automation or like lead follow-up software. This can come in a variety of ways. There's some that's actually tied in with your quoting or booking software. Somebody submits, their email, their name, and it already puts them in a drip sequence of emails, calls, and texts. Go High Level is like an all-in-one kind of system that people will use for that. Having a software that does that, whether it's just as simple as like HubSpot or MailerLite for emails, or as complex as Go High Level, where you're building out really complex funnels, that is kind of the next step towards automating your sales process and optimizing that sales process. And so if you're kind of future casting, like what way is it going to go up from here where I'm just taking phone calls, that is going to be the next step for you. And those are the softwares that you should look into integrating.
Great. And then, okay, so we talked about getting more eyeballs on the landing page. I think that's an interesting topic, and maybe part of
Yeah.
that is SEO. So let's start with SEO and then go into just driving more traffic generally. Can you talk about the basics of SEO for a home service business, and just what that even is, and then like how a business should think about that? If I'm a, a plumber, HVAC owner, and I'm focused on just doing great work on site, like how do I even think about what this is and how I can start approaching it so that my site ranks? And yeah, so just the basics on SEO would be great.
Absolutely. So I always kind of describe it to people in very simplified ways. There are really two ways that you can get traffic and ultimately get leads and get business: paid or organic. If you go paid, you're doing anything, obviously, that is like directly paid for that result. So if you're paying for Google ads, every time you get a click, you pay Google. If you're paying for Facebook ads, every time you get a lead from that, you're paying Facebook. If you're doing Google local service ads, every time you get a call or a message, you're paying Google. And so it scales, but the cost is always going to scale with you. A lot of times people don't want to be on that hamster wheel and they want to go towards the organic route. And so that's anything from just literally making business connections and networking upwards of like social media posting and SEO. And so for SEO specifically, I break that down into three main activities. There's on-page technical SEO, there's content creation, and then there's link building. And those three things, you can go super deep in them. For most business owners, the way that you have to think about it is on-page and technical SEO. This is what your web designer developer should be doing for you, making sure that the website's set up properly, there's no missing, pages, there's no broken links, the very basic stuff, making sure that your images have like descriptive text on them. So if you hire someone to do your website, they should take care of a lot of that. Content creation is the most obvious. You should have content on your website, on your home pages, your services pages, your locations pages, and on your blog that communicate what you do and who you do it for. And if you're really focused on the SEO, they have been written with a strategy in place to basically communicate to Google that they should recommend your website and your content for somebody searching for example, that service in that area, house cleaning in Cincinnati. And that's really what the content optimization side is. It plays hand in hand with the on-page stuff because you want to make sure that the content that you're creating has those on-page technical fundamentals dialed in. Again, that's what your web developer or designer is going to work with. But it's some pretty easy stuff if you want to look that up as well. As long as you know what you're building the website in, you know that platform. A lot of those platforms have it pretty easy to dial in that stuff. The complicated one that scares people is link building, because what is it? Why is it important? Like, how do you even go about doing it? When you're thinking about link building, it's really about the way that Google does their algorithm is to recommend people that it views as authoritative to you. And so if Google is really not able to understand websites out there, it can't read websites, how does it communicate authority to people? The way that it does it is almost like you would if you were looking for recommendations for a barber. So let's say I'm looking for someone to cut my hair, and I have 4 friends that recommend Bryan the barber. I have 1 friend that recommends, Joe from down the street. I don't know either of these people. And so I'm going to probably go with the one that 4 people recommended as my kind of trusted source. And the way that Google views authority is basically that way. They're looking to see what other websites do we have in our system that we trust that also are pointing or referencing this website that we don't know anything about. And so they're using that to kind of understand if they should trust it. And then if Google feels like they can trust your website, they feel like they can show it to people that are searching for example, what you offer. And that's kind of my way of explaining SEO to business owners. And so after you build a website, really, you just have to start thinking about if it makes sense for you to tackle that from an SEO perspective. Is there actual search volume for what your business does and where you guys service? Because you can pour a lot of money in trying to rank for something when the juice is not there, like there's actually nobody searching for it. Or in the same vein, you could be in a field that is super competitive and you are trying to climb a hill that somebody's already at the top of and they really don't want to get off of. And so you have to kind of analyze it from a competitive standpoint before you go into doing any of those 3 things and investing a lot of time or money in it. But at a nutshell, if you want to improve your SEO and get leads directly from Google search, you want to work on your on-page content. So what is your website saying and communicating? You want to work on your perceived authority, basically by getting links from other reputable websites. And you want to make sure that the website itself doesn't have any basic technical flaws. And that is all towards basic SEO, which is like ranking on Google search. Similar, but a little bit different is maybe some people refer to it just purely as like local SEO. And that's where you search something and you see the little map, the Google map, and you see those business listings. That's similar in how you approach it. It kind of plays hand in hand a little bit with the website, but that one is a lot more about, do you have reviews on your Google business profile? Is your Google business profile accurate? Are you in all these other directories, which is called a citation when somebody in another directory like the Better Business Bureau references your name, address, and phone number? Ranking in the local map pack tends to be a little bit easier and cheaper, just because it's newer, right? And not a lot of people have adopted it in the same way that, people have been doing SEO in the Google sense for 24 years. So that's the kind of split between those two. But in a nutshell, it's really about if you want to break away from this paid advertising triangle and go into something that is a little bit more long-term, we'll kind of build you a competitive moat. Obviously, if you rank, it's going to be harder for someone to just come and take those leads away from you. And you don't pay every single time somebody does come to you when you do something like SEO, which is really what makes it attractive to most people.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That's a good breakdown. So it's having a good, well-formatted website with good content. It's having, is it backlinks? Is that the term when other people link your website?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
having backlinks. And what was the third piece?
The backlinks, it's the content, and it's the technical fundamentals of the website, making
Got
sure
it.
that the website is not broken or like having
You don't
bugs
click
or.
about and it goes to a dead landing page or something like that.
Yep,
Okay.
exactly.
Cool. Makes sense. All right, man. So wrapping things up here, you've been in the game for a while. You've been helping these home service businesses build great landing pages. What are some trends that you're seeing right now? And where do you think the future is going for the web and digital presence for local and home service businesses?
So I'm seeing a lot of younger people jump in and try to take these pen and paper older businesses and turn them into digital, tech forward, modern type of businesses. They are using online booking software. They are using automation software to automate their sales processes and follow-ups. Like, this is the standard playbook that is very much glorified on like YouTube and Twitter and anywhere now, of like, you take these old, very basic service businesses, you inject a little bit of tech into them, and you can then have higher margins, you can have more scale. This is what a lot of people like to talk about. Some of the more like minor or more niche ones related to the website itself is you are seeing people care a little bit more about like, how does it actually look and how's it designed. You're seeing people care more about the branding and like building a brand versus just building like Joe's Plumbing Company. I think that trend is going to increase. And I think that as it becomes more accessible for somebody to have a website that looks like it's really well designed and thought out, that's only going to continue to increase, because I think that people intuitively want and understand that that works. That's what the bigger companies try to go for. And as easy as it gets to be for somebody just starting out, there's really no downside to going that route as long as you can actually do it. And so as technology improves, as AI comes into play, you don't have to write all this crazy content. As AI comes and helps you create images, as AI acts as like a sales bot on your website, like all of these things are going to empower people to make their websites more modern and more tech forward. And I think that it's really going to do a lot for small business owners in particular.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and that's like I think Sweaty Startup on Twitter, I think has been talking about that playbook for a while. I feel like he's kind of the OG on that.
Yep.
Kind of coming and injecting tech into these traditional service businesses. So, all right, man, appreciate you coming on. Where can people find you on the web, Twitter, your website, in case they maybe want to work with you for blue collar builds? Let us know where to find you.
Yeah, so you can go to my website, bluecollarbuilds.tech, or you can go to Twitter. I'm super active on Twitter at Alex Lathery, AlexLathery.
All right, Alex, thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.